Hey, what's up? This is Kev from the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast, and you're listening to the BS Podcast Network. Enjoy the show.
In a world of ordinary fantasy football podcasts, ordinary guys rise up to bring you extraordinary analysis and entertainment. This is the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts Kevin Cotillo, Sal Lito, and Stephen Marcus.
In West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground is where I spend most of my days. Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool and all, shooting some b-ball outside of the school. When a couple of guys who were up to no good started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight and my mom got scared and said, "You're moving with your auntie and uncle in Bel Air." I whistled for a cab and when it came near, the license plate said fresh and it had dice in the mirror. If anything, I could say that this cab was rare, but I thought, man, forget it. Yo, home to Bel Air. I pulled up to the house about 7 or 8 and I yelled to the cabbie, "Yo home, smell you later." Looked at my kingdom, I was finally there to sit on my throne as the Prince of Bel Air.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today is Thursday, July 20th. No, it's June 22nd, and this is the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast. I just want it to be July so bad, guys.
So bad.
Take it easy, Kevin. It can't get here any sooner.
Yeah, it needs to be July. This is the worst month of the football season. Obviously, everyone has gone on vacation. Mini camps are done. OTAs are done. And training camps are the Patriots training camp is 5 weeks away today. I know that for a fact.
Listen, I got to be honest with you. March kind of sucks.
You know what, though? March, there's draft prep, there's combines, there's pro days.
I'm pretty sure we had 2 drafts in March as well. So
yeah, look, there's a lot of drafts going on. There's nothing happening right now. I'm going to have to start leagues.
We're in 2 drafts together right now, you knucklehead. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think it's because you guys are in there as well. It's just not as much fun, maybe. I don't know. Welcome to the show. I have with me Steve Marcus, of course. How are you, Steve?
Oh, I'm doing Kev. I'm doing good. Kev, I'm doing good. It's late.
Kev. This is not going well so far. We have Sal Lito here as well.
Hey, you selfish jerk. How are you?
We have a special guest who's here with us. I don't even know how to introduce him. I'm going to say it's Shane Manila. Is that right? Is that how you say that?
That's part of my name, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I go by nowadays.
He's going to be quiet because we told him to be quiet. But we'll let him talk in a little bit. First, though, we have a guest that's going to come in and do a little interview and do a little plug for something he's been working on. Some great material. We have Bob Lugg from the BigGuyFantasySports.com to talk about the 2017 Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. All right, so right now we are going to welcome in a special guest tonight, Bob Lugg from BigGuyFantasySports.com. He is the author of the 2017 Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. Bob, how's it going tonight?
Going great. Thank you guys for having me on tonight.
Oh, absolutely. We're excited to have you. So you are a writer and a podcaster from BigGuyFantasySports.com, and you wrote this book, the 2017 Fantasy Football Consistency Guide, like I mentioned. It has a lot of information. I opened it up, and it's amazing how much information you have in here. It's pretty special, as far as the way you're going about this, and we'll get into that in a minute. But why don't you give us a little background on yourself and, how you got into fantasy football and how you got into writing this?
Well, I got into fantasy football, believe it or not, in 1985. A friend of mine came home from a bookstore. I know that's hard to believe that they even have that. But came home from a bookstore. The little book says, Playing Fantasy Football. And it was by a guy, I think his name was Chris Charpentine or Charpentier, something like that. But it was very simply the explanation of how to play. Now, we didn't have the internet. But we did have a computer because I worked for a public accounting firm, and I was one of the few people that had access to that and Lotus 123. And so I was, of course, Don the commissioner because I was the only one who could do that. And so basically every week we did our draft. We had 12 teams, and I'm happy to say and proud to say that we still have the same league. We still play the same touchdown-only format, and 8 of the 12 original owners are still in the league. So, of course, we're all good friends of ours, so we've obviously stayed friends, so that's how that all works out. But anyway, so every week, I created my little Lotus 1, 2, 3 spreadsheet, put in the scores, mailed them by snail mail every Wednesday so that people could get them on Fridays. And then on Sunday morning, my answering machine at home was filled with messages giving everybody's lineups, to my wife's dismay when she'd come home and see 17 messages flashing. She's like, oh, my gosh, not again. And so that was the start of in 1985. So, of course, I always tell people I was playing fantasy football before it was even cool. And then the consistency thing came in about 2002. And what happened was that league that I was in, I was one of the top scoring teams in the league, but my team went 7-7, and I didn't make the playoffs in the 14 games before the playoffs. And so I was, I'm a CPA by day, so being a bean counter, being a number cruncher, I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. This is driving me crazy. How could I do this well? Well, what it came down to was that year I had Sean Alexander, who was the NFL's MVP, rushed for 15 touchdowns, which is huge point score in our league because it's touchdown only. But he did 5 touchdowns in one night on a Monday night game.
By the way, I was playing against him that night, and I still won that game.
Good, well done. Well, congratulations for you. I won that week too, but that didn't help much. But the rest of the season, he only had like 3 touchdowns in one game, and then he had 2 in another game. So basically, he scored like 10 touchdowns in 3 games, and then the other 5 over the remaining games. So I'm like, if he would have just scored 1 touchdown a week, I would have won 3 more games. I'd have made the playoffs. I'd have won the championship. So I'm like, okay, so there's got to be a way to figure this out. So between, again, the number crunching, having some friends that knew Visual Basics, and we kind of put a program together and a thing together that we could input data. It would shoot out these numbers that said, here's the most consistent guys. It calculates based on the scoring method, number of teams in the league, and various things like that, and gives a factor every week that that position has to earn over. So, for example, in a PPR league, a running back might have to earn over like 11 points. A wide receiver might be over 11 points. Quarterbacks around 20 and tight ends around 10. So if they exceed that each week, that earns them a clutch game or consistent game. The more clutch games, the more consistent, and the better they're going to be for your team on an ongoing basis. And so the idea was to take this information, share it with others, and say, here's guys who are good and consistent, and here are guys who are just good and score a lot of points, but not in a consistent manner that may help your team and actually may hurt you. And so I identify kind of both sides of who can help your team and who can hurt your team. Even though at the end of the year they may be top 10 in scoring and total points, they may not be as consistent as you think. So that's kind of the thing, and that's where we're getting. And the book started about 3 years ago when, every year I see these fantasy football magazines out on the bookshelves, and I'm like, I should write one and just have every bit of information be about the consistency of the players, their historical consistency, identify those undervalued guys who are consistent but not as high scoring, and put out my own magazine. And I did. So here we are, year 3 of doing this, and just released yesterday, and happy to be on here to promote it.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely awesome. I am someone who, when I go into my drafts, I look for those consistent players, the guys that you can count on to score double digits each week. So I thought it was absolutely awesome. My question for you is, this year is the first year that you've started doing rookies. So I don't know if you have the data going forward, but have you seen any type of drop-off specifically with rookie quarterbacks that have seemed to fluctuate from year 1 to year 2, because that sophomore slump, everybody worries about that. Is there any kind of data that you have available to you that maybe backs that type of thing up or disproves it?
Going from year 1 to year 2, basically, I think in the article that's in the book called Rookies versus Consistency, I think I may have brought up some stuff about that because basically what that article really says is that rookies are not very consistent. In fact, the data shows that since 2010, so basically 7 years of drafting, the wide receiver, quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends in the first 4 rounds, less than 8% are actually 60% consistent in their rookie season or higher. When it comes to quarterbacks, the only 4 that have ever done it since 2010 are Cam Newton, Dak Prescott, Robert Griffin, and Marcus Mariota. Mariota is actually the only one who did 60% or higher in his second year. Cam actually had a down year in 2012, so he didn't do as well, but it's actually about 50-50, when it comes to earning that second year of 60% or higher. And 60% is okay. I mean, if you get a quarterback, you want your quarterbacks to be in that 70-plus range because you really need them to be there for you every week because there's only one of them starting. So unless you're really good at streaming them, it's probably a lot easier just to get a good, consistent one every year.
Cool. Bob, can you go a little bit into the clutch factor, clutch rate, expected clutch rate? Like, I know you don't want to go too deep into it. We want people to actually buy this and not get too much information from you tonight. But just give an idea of what it is that you're looking for.
Well, what I'm looking for, obviously, numbers are numbers. Numbers, quote, don't lie. But so when you look at a person, you want to see not only the consistency in 1 year, but you want to start seeing that be consistently consistent, I guess, is the best term. So guys like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, those guys you can count on from year to year. To me, they're worth drafting in the 4th, 5th, 6th round if that's where you can get them. Now, I'm not saying I reach and say, man, I got to have my quarterback in the 1st round, because I can find consistent quarterbacks in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round. So, if every league I'm in is drafting Aaron Rodgers in the 1st round, I'm probably not going to draft him there. I'm going to wait and I'll get it to somebody else. The key is to really identify those guys that have shown some pattern of consistency. One of the other things I look at for especially undervalued players, and a lot of the times, just like Steve mentioned, was those rookies or second-year guys who have a really good second half the year before and showed some good consistency. And as long as things remain the same on their team, there's always a very good chance they're going to break out the next year. I can show history of when the year before both Jimmy Graham and Antonio Gates broke out and had their big first years from a fantasy standpoint. Was the year before they both went about 6 out of 8 in consistent games at the second half of the year. And it was very obvious that they were starting to gel with Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees. And then the next year I was picking them, as the 7th, 8th tight end off the board, maybe even 12th. But I was getting them in the mid rounds and got great value out of them. They all then, of course, took off, and obviously you couldn't get them that cheap anymore in drafts. But that's the kind of stuff I look for. Does the atmosphere stay the same on the team? Did they change teams? Did their team improve? Did they get a better offensive line? I mean, there's things that go into it, but the numbers are the numbers. And then I kind of just create the information around the numbers in the profiles by kind of explaining why I feel that even though they may have had a good year the year before or a bad year the year before, while I think things could improve and you might get them as an undervalued or maybe overvalued player now in your drafts this year.
So is it also find a correlation in the fact that every year around fantasy football season, my marriage consistently is on the rocks. No, I'm just kidding. That was
you had to play in 19 leagues like I did.
Believe me, Bob, we're getting there. So, when I opened up the book and I read the introduction right away, I was like, this is my guy. I love Bob right away because I get all the jokes about being the old guy around here, and you're older than me, but I gotta say I'm gonna be 43 this year. I've been playing since the early 90s, and when I read your introduction, it actually took me back.
Good.
I still play in my original league that my cousins.
Yep.
Yeah, my cousins who are in their early 50s who started that league, we're still in it together. We still do it offline. It's not done right. Through any of the major sites. We can email our lineup, but everything else, trades, ad drops are all done over the phone, and it's
are keeping it old school.
Yeah, scoring sheet fantastic. Is done by pen and paper every week. So I was really excited when I saw all that, and then I saw the show on Alexander thing. I was like, I remember the guy. I remember his name is Rugsy was his nickname. I was playing him, and he was terrible. I got those 5 touchdowns, and I still beat him. And we just abused the hell out of him that season. It was a really good time. So it's always great to hear guys who've been playing for a long time and I can relate with them. So Bob, why don't you tell everybody where they could get this, and we'll definitely make sure we pump it out on Twitter tomorrow.
I appreciate that. So the book is in multiple places. You can go to Big Guy Fantasy Sports. That's going to be the basically cheapest place to buy it. There, it's only $7.99, and it's a PDF download. The tier draft list, which we didn't talk a lot about, but that's in the back of the book. I update all preseason as well as the book itself. And so once you get on the Big Guy Fantasy Sports site and you register and you buy the book, you always have access to the page with the updated book and draft list all the way to draft time. And then that way you can, if you're getting closer to your draft, you can, get the newer version and read it. I'll usually email people and let everybody know if I've updated a lot of stuff, but that's that. And then it's on all the major Google Play, Amazon, those kind of places as well. A couple dollars more expensive just because of printing costs and fees and everything like that. That's the major places to get them. But just happy to share it with people and get it out there. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you guys are going to maybe share one of the books with some of your listeners.
Absolutely, Bob, and we appreciate that. Yeah, we're gonna find out something by the end of the show. We'll have come up with a way for someone to win one, and we'll give it out and let them experience all this. We definitely want to thank you for coming out. It's Bob_Lung on Twitter, so definitely check him out. I'm sure you'll be posting everything there where you can get all this stuff, so people can check that out when they need to as well. Because we find that people don't really take notes when they listen to this show, strangely enough. So, but thank you very much. That's right. Thank you very much, Bob, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
All right, bye.
Good night.
All right, thanks again to Bob Lung for giving us that information and for coming on the show. We will definitely have him back because I really think that he's the only person older than Sal that we can get at this point.
That's right. So, it's important to make Sal feel better about his age.
There's old people lining up to get on this show.
Sal, how old are you? In your mid-60s?
Yeah, so I'll be 43 in August, but somehow I've been labeled as a senior citizen.
It's the way you act and talk. Obviously, as I mentioned, we have Shane Manila, who that's what we're gonna keep going with. You guys might know him on Twitter as @DFF_Shane. He is Shameless Shane just about everywhere else. Thanks for coming on the show with us tonight, Shane. We appreciate it. Why don't you really quickly just give a little bit of background on who you are and why the hell we allowed you to be on the show?
Well, first off, it's not Shameless Shane anymore. It's just Shane Says.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So first off, you did no research into me. I do stuff. I write about things. I do a lot of editing over at DFF. I was a ranker up until about 2 hours ago when they asked me to update my rankings, and I said, this is a good time for me to bail out on that. Generally, just I'm like the Flavor Flav of DFF. I'm the hype man, and I smoke crack. So that's what I do.
Excellent. So for those of you who don't know, DFF is DynastyFootballFactory.com. Obviously, great website for Dynasty rankings, Dynasty data, some Dynasty articles, and a lot of stuff that other people who are more intelligent than Shane write.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what I do, because I have editing rights. So a lot of times if I really like an article, I'm slapping my name on that. I've done that, my top 5 articles, I'd say 6 of them are those.
Nice. You didn't say that with mine. I wrote an article for you guys, and that didn't happen. So I guess
that should say something,
I'm pretty sure he's implying that sucked.
I really wanted Kevin to write a lot for me, but he told me to go screw myself.
Yep.
And it hurt my feelings.
Yeah. Well, that's why I agreed to have you on the show. I figured we'd make it up to you. Also, because of the way our new bit has gone, we figured you were the perfect guest for the show, because we've been obviously doing a bit called Sal Says, mainly based around the fact that he has a horrible New York accent that most of us can't understand.
Oh!
But you, Shane, are from Philadelphia, and some people call a baby New York? Is that?
No, I don't think anyone's ever called it that.
I know.
Without getting punched in the face.
Yeah. Us, people from Boston like to throw that at you guys.
Hey, Shane, I think we could both agree that we all hate Boston, right?
Boston's terrible. And the worst thing about Kevin is he doesn't even have the Boston accent. So he doesn't even represent.
I got to be honest.
He's a
things that Kevin and that.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad things about me. There's no question about that. I can't even argue with that. But we are going to play for tonight. We are going to play Shane Says, and we'll do that in just a second.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
What the man's about to the chip? What the man's about to the chip, boy?
I'm sorry, I do not understand your accent. Why don't you please just speak English? Maybe I can understand you. I am speaking English. Why don't you speak English?
All right, so Shane Says, this is how this works. We are going to play, we're going to read a transcription of a Voxer clip that Shane has been nice enough to do a voiceover for. It is current news, and we're going to let Sal play this time since Shane's the one who's talking, and then we'll play the clip and then maybe talk about it. But Sal, are you ready? You ready to have this tables turned?
Yeah, I'm trying to hear you over. Shane sounds like he's moving furniture over there, but other than that, I'm ready to go.
Look, I got to make money somehow. I was breaking into a house. Just keep it quiet.
Steve, are you ready?
Yeah, I think my role in this episode is literally just going to be laughing while you guys all talk to each other. So yeah, I'm ready to listen in on this.
And the exodus of Steve has begun. That's great. All right, so let's go. Here's the first one. Let them roll a row from Bill. He has flashed ability to be special struggles with consistency. Crumble is a more dynamic receiving weapons in person. Start of Jesse James, who has averaged 8.4 yards on 47 receptions. If he proves more reliable in camp, it would not be surprising to see Garrett Box Grumble plus change for the starting job. Sal, we'll go with you.
I love it. So as soon as you said Grumble, I knew it was Xavier Grimble. I don't know why. Maybe I can understand Shane. Maybe in some sick way we get each other. And I was actually talking to John Bob about Grimble yesterday because this is a guy who's high on my radar to grab late in drafts, both dynasty and redraft this year. So I think what he was trying to tell us is that Xavier Grimble may get a shot at some extra playing time if he has a good training camp.
I'm going to give you the win on that one. So, Steve, you don't get to guess. That is exactly what he's trying to say. Let's hear it directly from Shane.
Labrola wrote, Grimble has flashed the ability to be special, but struggles with consistency. Grimble is a more dynamic receiving weapon than presumed starter Jesse James, who has averaged 8.4 yards on 47 receptions. If he proves more reliable in camp, it would not be surprising to see Grimble push James for the starting job.
Right,
I got to be honest with you. I thought he read that pretty clearly until he got the Grumble.
What happened with the Grumble at the end there?
I was really drunk at work today. And I mean, whew.
I'll tell you what, X's are tricky. Good. Those things pop up in there, and you don't. I have trouble with them myself, so I don't blame you.
There you go. That's a yeah. I'll take that.
All right. I think this next one's going to be a little easier. So, Steve, I'm going to give you the first dibs on trying here, since it's to catch up to Sal here. All right. Here it is. Recovering from surgery on his right side, Sharp is expected to be ready for camp, but Mike Mularkey said he could have a hard time if he's not able to stay in shape. Obviously, he's not going to run right now, but he's got to do something to stay in shape. Mularkey said you've got to be ready to go no matter what your injury is there. Something you can do cardio-wise to training after earning his starting job last year. Mularkey's comments suggest Shark could be competing for a job this time around, even if he sticks on the roster. Sharp is not going to be sassy relevant behind Eric Decker, Corey Davis, and Rashard Matthews.
I think I'm calling shenanigans on this one.
No, this is totally legit. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine about this. This is obviously talking about Sal's lover boy from last year, Tajae Sharpe, and how he's recovering from some surgery. And he's got a little bit of a positional battle going on in Tennessee after they signed Eric Decker this week. They obviously drafted Corey Davis, and they have Rashard Matthews, Delaney Walker, plus they've got that run game going on. So all eyes on Tajae Sharpe if he is going to even make the roster this year.
All right.
So basically, the only thing that wasn't clearly said was shark.
Well, they all sassy. I don't think that's in the
I threw in a sassy.
No, they're pretty sassy bunch.
I don't know why.
That's right.
Yeah. I did definitely looking at this. It says fantasy relevant instead of sassy relevant. Somehow after, but let's hear.
I need a man named Tajae could definitely be sassy.
Let's hear what Shane had to say.
Recovering from surgery on his right foot, Sharpe is expected to be ready for camp. But Mike Mularkey said he could have a hard time if he's not able to stay in shape. Obviously, he's not going to run right now, but he's got to do something to stay in shape, Mularkey said. You've got to be ready to go. No matter what your injury is, there's something you can do cardio-wise to train. After earning a starting job last year, Mularkey's comments suggest Sharpe could be competing for a job this time around. Even if he sticks on the roster, Sharpe is not going to be fantasy relevant behind Eric Decker, Corey Davis, and Rashard Matthews.
All right, so Steve is correct. But Shane, let's talk about that a little bit. What are your thoughts about the Tennessee situation right now? Because that's a lot of guys. With the signing of Decker, it really crowds it. Who are you? I mean, are you still as excited about Corey Davis as you might have been previously? Who are you looking for in this offense now?
Yeah, I'd say Corey Davis is actually the only guy I'm excited about. Decker's going to cause problems for Rashard Matthews, and Tajae Sharpe's dead. There's really no blurbs. There's no reason to have blurbs on him. The next blurb we should see should be when he's getting convicted for assault, from attacking the dude in the alley.
It's not going to happen in Philadelphia if you keep talking like that.
He wasn't good last year. So, I mean, he's garbage. I don't think he's going to beat Taiwan Taylor out. That's who I feel bad for, because I had, sleeper hopes for him, but he's probably the wide receiver 4 or 5 at this point.
I think it gives Taylor a year to get acclimated to the league, and, Decker's not going to be there that long. And let's see how he even comes back from the injury. But to me, it's just crazy how quickly things could change for the life of an NFL player, because a year ago, like Steve pointed out, this was a guy who was lighting up mini camps, OTAs, and there was so much high hope and praise for him coming in. They traded Dorial Green-Beckham, and everybody thought that this kid was instantly going to make an impact. And he had little to no value during the season, as you pointed out, Shane. And it's a crazy world. When I get up tomorrow, I'm just going to be happy that I could go fix stuff for people, and nobody's trying to get rid of me.
Yeah, there's a lesson to be learned, though. When you draft a guy, especially earlier in the offseason, the rookie drafts, and you draft him in the 4th round, and at some point you can get a first-round rookie pick for him, sell immediately.
That's good advice from Shane.
That's what I do.
I think the other thing that people just need to realize is that Dorial Green-Beckham is very bad at football. He got cut for Tajae Sharpe, so let's just keep that.
No. He was traded for a
traded. Yes, I'm
guard.
Sorry. Right.
He's going to be cut this year for Mac Hollins, or maybe I don't even know. He's not making the roster though in Philadelphia. He's going to be working at Taco Bell or something.
Oh my God, I love the stuffed nacho thing. That's awesome.
Let him know.
All right, guys, we got one more. Sal, you'll get first crack at this one. I promise you it's not rigged in any way, shape, or form, but are you ready?
See.
All right. According is Arabic Baltimore. Are you starting receivers on 58% of their players last year with Dennis Pitta no longer around and Jeremy Maclin in the fold? That number is likely to arise the season, which is good news for a likely number 3 receiver of the Shard tournament style, pressure carry men's breakout potential to be a big hit with Macklin signed, and he's no better than a late round flyer.
All right, so I'm going to guess that Rashard Perryman is going to still be considered a breakout candidate because there are a lot of targets that were vacated with Pitta's injury, and he's worth a late round.
All right,
late round flyer.
All right, I think that you might be correct here. Let's find out.
According to Zerbic, Baltimore used 3 receivers on 58% of their plays last year. With Dennis Pitta no longer around and Jeremy Macklin in the fold, that number is likely to rise this season, which is good news for likely number 3 receiver Rashard Perryman. Still, Perryman's breakout potential took a big hit when Macklin signed, and he is no better than a late-round flyer.
All right.
Did you just give up on the name halfway through?
The saddest thing, it's not my accent. It's when I read it, it sounds like I'm reading. What's that first book you read? Like Dick and Jane have a cat. Like that. That's what it sounds like. Jesus.
You have no idea where the like exclamation points and stuff are supposed to go. The sentences just run on.
I blame Kevin.
You're reading at a third grade level.
That's good.
Well, yeah, and he should have known that.
This is such a change from last week when Matt Price blamed everything on Steve. I don't like this.
I love it. Shane, you're welcome on anytime.
So Steve, let's get your thoughts on
who's that comedian. Hey, who's the comedian that does the solar system jokes? He's just like, you had that kid in class, and he actually does the reading, but he just shouts out, "The big yellow one's the sun." That's Shane.
All right, Steve, let's get your thoughts on this because I am curious how people are viewing the Baltimore receiving core now. Obviously, similar to Tennessee adding Macklin, crowds the what we thought was a receiving core that was struggling. Right, they needed people, and now all of a sudden you add Macklin, and people are worried about the guys that are there. So, what are you doing with this receiving core?
Yeah, the first thing about them is that they're all at a pretty good value. You don't have to draft any one of them early. You won't be drafting any one of them as a starter on your team, so you're going to be able to pick and choose your spots with them. You've got Macklin, you've got Mike Wallace, who is someone who was very serviceable last year if you needed him for a bye-week fill. And even, there were multiple weeks that he was a wide receiver 1 or 2, so he's still there. And then you have Rashard Perryman, who's fallen, who's taken the biggest hit because of this Macklin signing, and you can basically pick him up for free. I'm sure once redraft season ramps up, he probably won't even be drafted again. So if you have a deeper roster, you'll be able to add him on there at the end. As far as a season-long prospect for him, I don't know if he's going to have the opportunity to really be a consistent starter week in and week out because of how they spread that ball around. They don't really have a tight end that is going to be taking over solely for Pitta. They had Max Williams, but he's still recovering from surgery, so I don't know if he's going to be able to be a factor early on in the season. So I think the Baltimore Raven that I want right now more than anybody is Danny Woodhead. So that should say a lot about the wide receivers.
He's not a wide receiver.
No, I've said the Baltimore Ravens that I want the most is Danny Woodhead. The receivers, I'm not really targeting them. I'm not going to be looking to pick them up. But if it seems like it's a value later on in the draft, then I will definitely add one. But as far as targeting one, it's going to be Danny Woodhead, and that's about it.
That's a terrible non-answer.
I love this. This is getting better now.
That is what it is.
That is unacceptable. First,
so Shane,
redraft.
Shane, let's hear your thoughts then. What are you doing? What are you doing with this? What are you doing with this receiving core?
Well, I really love Terrence West. For Dynasty, which is what adults play, Steve. Perryman is still the one to own. Mike Wallace is now 30. Jeremy Macklin's 29. He just got cut from a team that had at least playoff aspirations, which makes me question, what was behind that besides just, a salary dump. But the one thing Steve said that was somehow correct was you can get them all fairly cheaply because no one knows who's going to be the breakout. But I mean, they threw the ball the most in the league last year. I could easily see those three guys all getting 100 targets. So in Dynasty, though, I'm still going to stick with Perryman. In redraft, if I had to play it, gun to my head, I guess I would grab Macklin.
All right, let me throw something out there real quick for you. So I was offered a trade in. We've talked a lot about the Capitalist Pigs leagues. In Capitalist Pigs 1, I was offered a deal. Obviously, it's a dynasty format with a rolling bankroll. I was offered Brashard Perryman and $20 for John Brown, which I valued. I don't ever get offended by trades, but I will say that one was like, I don't. What? What do you mean it's false?
You hate some trades. You've gotten some trade offers before that you.
I don't think I've ever been offended.
Well, no, like you've never like called anybody out. I don't think, but you've definitely had some times where you've been like, well, what the hell is this?
Yeah. Well, so anyway, I guess my question to you then, Steve, is that what the hell is that?
I would say that's someone trying to buy cheap. I think that you're trying to. Perriman's had some hype this offseason. OTAs are all we really have to go off of. So you get a GIF on Twitter, you get a short video of someone making a catch, and everyone goes insane. And so people try to feed off of that, and they try and get value out of that. And so I think someone who hears that John Brown has a little hamstring issue already in camp, and Brashard Perriman's doing pretty well. He's had some hype for his entire career, basically, and they were trying to get rid of him on the cheap. I would much rather have John Brown than Brashard Perriman and $20, and not everybody's like that. So you put those trades out there to see who's going to bite, and some people get offended like yourself, Kev.
I did not get offended. Sal, what are your thoughts? John Brown versus Brashard Perriman. It's Brown in a landslide, right?
I could use the $20 was the first thing I thought of.
I'll send it to you in Vienna fingers.
Oh my God! I just finished the package too. This time it could not be better. I listen. I don't think that is that big of a landslide because while I like John Brown better, I like the offense he's playing in right now better. One more year with Carson Palmer, who knows where it goes from there. He's had nagging injuries too. They've popped back up. So while Perriman has obviously missed a lot of time due to injury, I don't know that they're not in the same boat. So it's not as insulting to me as it is to you.
I was not insulted.
No,
would I
offended.
Take Brown
offended,
insulted, whatever the case is?
I thought it was a fairly close trade. To me, Brown wins handily, and the $20 didn't really move the needle for me. Is really what it boils down to.
I would take Brown as well, but it's again, I wouldn't dismiss it as crazy. And two things. Number one. That comedian was Brian Regan. For you people at home, look him up. It's a very funny bit. And, Shane, I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are teetering on knowing that they need to rebuild. I know that they won a division last year. As a Homer Raider fan, I will say they only won a division because of Carr's injury, but they would have made the playoffs anyway, most likely in a wild card. But I think that they realize that if things don't get off to a good start right away, they're switching quarterbacks, going with Mahomes, and they're in rebuild mode. So as far as Macklin goes, well, I don't love Macklin. He doesn't, as Kevin says, move the needle for me. I don't think there was a whole lot more to it other than getting rid of that money and giving the younger guys, Conley and Hill, the opportunity to take the lead.
Yeah, I can see that. Hill's, I think he's pure trash, and we'll see that this year. I'm with you. I love Conley, who's showed absolutely nothing in the league. But in fairness to him, the type player he is doesn't really match up with Alex Smith because Alex Smith is a coward on the football field. There's a lot going on in Kansas City. I saw tonight they just fired their GM and re-signed Andy Reid. So it looks like Andy Reid's going to be putting his imprint on the personnel there, which went really well in Philadelphia. But as far as that trade, he was a fine coach, but he wore out his welcome, and he started doing just things that didn't make a lot of sense.
Do you think that same thing's going to happen in Kansas City now? Do you see a similar trend?
Yeah, although I will say this, with the quarterback situation, it's kind of the opposite. You know, he walked in there with a terrible quarterback, and now he's got Alex Smith. I shouldn't say is terrible. He's superbly mediocre. And now he's got.
I was just gonna say I can relate to that. He's like the Steve of podcasting.
And now he's got Smith. Now he's got Mahomes, who I would hope would sit on the bench for a year so he could work on his decision making and some of his mechanics. But if they want to throw him out there, it'd be a hell of a lot more fun to watch, and Connolly should do a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, you know, one of the guys that I'm interested in is particularly from a dynasty perspective is D'Anthony Thomas. He's a guy that I would keep my eye on this year, more towards the middle of the year. He's coming in. He was drafted in the 4th round in 2014 out of Oregon. Coming into his 3rd year, he's a guy that I would keep an eye on as far as maybe breaking out a little bit.
I'm going to check my waiver wires for him.
There you go. Run over to the waiver wires. All right, so let's move along here a little bit. And Shane, we want to talk about a little bit about an article that you just put out, as I mentioned, on DynastyFootballFactory.com. You don't, as you said, you don't write much. It's very apparent in the writing, but the content was actually good. So tell us a little bit about this article. So you basically break down a Superflex startup draft and sort of go through some of your strategy in this league. And obviously we know that Superflex is becoming more of the norm, particularly in the dynasty community, but you can see it more and more across fantasy football. Obviously I don't think it's going to take over because there are large masses of people that like to play the regular single quarterback leagues. But as more of this pops up, it's important to note how people are handling the drafts. And one thing that struck me in your article was that you historically have not been a quarterback guy. It sounds like you're typically happy to wait on quarterback, but in this one you may have moved up a little bit and taken one earlier than you thought. Is that accurate? And what's changing your thinking there?
Yeah, I'd say when I first started playing Superflex, I was more of I played it like a straight draft. I'll grab quarterbacks whenever. But after having to start guys like Josh McCown and Brian Hoyer and Horrible Glennon and Ryan Fitzpatrick and just pure garbage like that, running those guys out like that on a semi-normal basis, I just decided that I'd much rather go quarterback early. Even in this draft, I waited a while on my second quarterback. At least I think I did. I grabbed Jameis Winston in the 2nd. But for some reason, quarterbacks were getting faded in this draft. I'm not really sure why, but that worked out for me. So I grabbed Jameis, and then I grabbed Carson Wentz in the 5th. And right there, I figure, I got 2 quarterbacks for roughly the next decade. I grabbed Jared Goff a little later just to see if maybe he'll remember how to play football.
We hope so. He's our starting quarterback in the Falafel Eliminator. So
yeah, we'll get to the Eliminator in a little bit. But look, so yeah, I think that I agree with you. I've always been kind of a quarterback guy anyway. I mean, in single quarterback leagues, I think you can wait. Even if you like to get one of the studs, but for me, I definitely in 2 quarterback leagues, I like to get in there early and make sure I get at least one solid quarterback, and then one, if I can get 2, great if the capital's there, but if I don't have to go too crazy with my draft capital, but I always like having 2 solid quarterbacks. I'm looking at one of the leagues that we play in the New Hollywood League. You and I and a bunch of the guys from TFA are in that league. And I'm looking at Andy Dalton, Joe Flacco, and Alex Smith for your quarterbacks there. And I can see why you may have changed your theory since then.
Yeah, that's not good. Andy Dalton should be fine this year. He's got a lot of weapons. But Alex Smith is trash. He might not have a job after a few weeks. I already forgot who the next guy was. Joe Flacco?
Yep. Yeah, it's certainly a large amount of mediocrity there. Sal, what are your thoughts? I think you've always been a wait on quarterback type as well.
Yeah, I like that you could get later in drafts, like Eli, who Steve wanted to take Dalton over, and guys like Stafford, guys like that. So I won't wait too long, but I'll generally pass over the big name guys, the big ticket guys. So those particular quarterbacks, I don't mind Dalton, but Flacco and Smith, I don't know if I've ever owned them in any form of fantasy football. I just can't. You guys remember last year, I told even when Flacco had a good game, don't start him next week.
Don't be sucked in.
Don't do it. So, yeah.
Flacco's that guy every season. Someone's telling me that he's a value in the 47th round or whatever. and you're like, oh, yeah, he really is. Until you have to put him in your lineup, and you're like, I don't want this value. I wish I would have overpaid for a good quarterback. I'm in another super flex right now, and unfortunately it didn't break that way for me. So my best quarterback is Eli Manning. Then I ended up with Mitchell Trubisky, who is terrible. And then Carson Palmer, who's going to die in like 3 weeks. So, that's the problem with super flex drafts, is if you wait too long on them and a run goes off, you're left holding the bag with Joe Flacco and Alex Smith and Deshaun Watson.
So one of the other things in this article that I wanted to touch on, because I think it's a good point, it's an interesting strategy, is you talk about trading out of the first round, and I'm wondering if you keep moving back in the first round, or which you did in this particular draft, which you're describing, or you move out of the first round altogether and you pick up an extra second or an extra third, is that so that you have that ability to take those, maybe not the top flight quarterbacks, but you have those mid-range quarterbacks? Is that kind of the thought process there, or do you just like the second and third rounds for everyone else?
Well, in general drafts, it's more about the value you can get there. Because again, in another draft I'm doing, I had the 102. I couldn't trade out. So, that's great. I get Odell Beckham in the first round, but after that, I'm screwed because I don't get to pick again until, the next wraparound, and it's a 14-team league. But yeah, in a 2 QB league, super flex league, I want to trade out of the first round, see who's there for me in the second. And if I have an additional third, well, then, maybe I'll grab 2 quarterbacks with my first 3 picks. And, that position's set. Everybody else will be chasing those quarterbacks later, and I can pick up the wide receivers and the running backs or tight ends or whatever, whatever premium it is that everyone else will be passing on to go get Joe Flacco and Eli Manning and Andy Dalton or someone like that.
So, Shane, you ridiculed me for liking redraft earlier. So in a Dynasty Superflex startup, where do you start to draw the line between taking young rookies or younger players between taking older, established veterans that have proven consistency throughout the years?
Typically, I'll kind of mix it up. It's really player dependent for me. One draft that I'm in right now, I actually went really young. As a matter of fact, this article that Kevin keeps referring to that I allegedly wrote, I went really young. I went with Hopkins, Corey Davis, Dalvin Cook, Jarvis Landry, Alvin Kamara, all in the first 7 rounds. And that wasn't really by design. But as I was, making trades and I was picking up 2018 firsts, it dawned on me that I'm not really going to be competing for a championship this year. So I was fine with grabbing a bunch of younger guys. If that's the construction that I'm going to take, then usually towards round 10, maybe round 12, I'll start trying to grab, older guys, more consistent guys that I know I can count on. Mike Wallace, for example, before Jeremy Maclin got there, or there's another good old guy I got. I guess CJ Fedora, which counts as an old guy now. Eddie Lacy, Pierre Gaston, guys like that. If you can pick up a couple bridge players, they're good to have, because if my team tanks out, well, at least I have some capital I can trade. Where if I have nothing but young guys, I'm not going to trade any of them.
Shane, I don't know if you've played anything as deep as a 32-team dynasty with single copy players, but I was in a startup last year, and I took Fedorowicz at the beginning of, in the draft, never thinking he'd be a fantasy relevant player. I was just filling out my roster, and I really, really smart move, dropped him before the season started for some named player I couldn't even name to you right now. So, Fedorowicz, while old, still relevant.
Hey, he's not even old. I think he's been in the league 4 years.
Yeah, it was funny, but he was not meant to be the receiving tight end in an offense last year, and it just turned out that we ended up being a very, very valuable fantasy asset for people who didn't drop him too soon.
Well, I actually did a buy-sell piece on the Texans last year, and not to toot my own horn, I did say grab him or the other guy, who I can't remember his name. Brian Griffin.
Right? Griffin. Yeah, well, he's a free agent currently in real football. So.
Yeah, well, so I said grab one of them, so I'm going to take that as a win.
And by I said, you mean one of your writers actually said, and you took credit for it?
Well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
So, Shane, let's talk about some of the other things we have going on. You were kind enough to enter many of John Bosch's fantasy celebrity eliminator challenges, but you did join the falafel one as well. And why don't you tell us how your early draft is going, and how jealous you are of the team that we are currently drafting?
Well, I don't like to brag because that's not what I do. But every indication that I've gotten is my team is probably going to win quite easily. I got Travis Kelce, Gronk. We'll skip Ryan Tannehill.
You're missing Tannehill there. You're not mentioning him.
Yeah, I'll gloss over him. But yeah, I grabbed the tight end 1, 2, and 3 for 2017, and assuming that I know the scoring, which we shouldn't. I believe it's a 1.5 for a reception for a tight end.
Yeah,
so real quick, just to go through the league a little bit, just to give the listeners a little bit of a background. These are Fantasy Insanity Eliminators. Obviously, like we said, you can go to fantasycares.net and sign up for any one of these. You can play against what John's generously calling celebrities. Steve, Sal, and I are the technically the celebrities in this one, and we are sharing a team against 16 other individuals. So there's 17 teams. You get a 16-man roster. There is 8 starters, and it's interesting because you can basically start any combination you want. You're not required to start any particular positions between QBs, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, kickers, and defenses. So you start 8 every week. The lowest score is kicked out, right? And it's basically how it works. So the scoring is pretty much regular as far as PPR league, with the addition of the extra half point for the tight ends, I believe. So
I believe it's actually a 3/4 point, right? 0.75.
0.75. Yes, I'm sorry.
For everybody else, and 1.5 for
1.5 for tight ends, and it is a 0.125 point per carry. So you do get that as well. So
I'm on the clock. I am actually on the clock, guys. So
take Matt Moore. Take Matt Moore.
Matt Moore. Let's see.
Someone's got to start the kicker run eventually.
Yeah, the kick is to go.
Oh, there's still more tight ends on the board. This is the approach I took to the Scott Fish Bowl last year, and I would have made the playoffs if the season ended after 4 weeks.
Nice. That's pretty good. That's always good. All right, so just to recap, you mentioned you have Ryan Tannehill as your quarterback. It is 6-point touchdowns for quarterbacks, right? Is it 6 or 4? So remind me here.
I don't have it open in front of me, and since I now have to switch to my phone to finish this interview.
Passing touchdowns are 6 points each.
Right, so you have Ryan Tannehill, you do have Eifert, Gronk, and Kelce, so you are locking down the tight end market. Meanwhile, on the other side, the better team here is Odell Beckham Jr., Amari Cooper, Julio Jones. I believe you've heard of those players. Jarvis Landry, and Jared Goff. So I think that
we do have Jared Goff as our starting quarterback, but we are locked and loaded at wide receiver.
Quarterback is really ugly right now.
It's very ugly.
The best quarterback left by ADP would be one Patrick Mahomes.
Nice.
Running back, we got Derrick Henry. I am as much as I don't want to, I'm going to draft a rookie wide receiver, I think. And never mind. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. I don't know. I'm very.
You make sure you
nervous.
stay away from Hackenberg. Hackenberg's our last round flyer. You stay away from him.
Corey Coleman. Corey Coleman's been added to my roster.
Oh, wow. All right. So Corey Coleman added live on the air. Excellent pick there. I can't argue with that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your strategy? Obviously, you went very heavy on tight end. Is that just because of the tight end premium, or what's your thought process here?
Yeah, that's literally it. I am not that smart. I see one particular player getting more points for something than the other players. I want to try to get that player. So,
Wow. That's
it. That's all I got.
Steve, did you write that down?
I actually have written that down, which must be why he selected Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback, because those 6-point touchdown passes, all 17 of them that he throws next year are going to be very valuable.
I will say this. If I could go back in time, there would be one less tight end and a different quarterback.
I think we actually talked about it. So we were, it was our pick. We went Odell Beckham. We had the 17th pick. So obviously last pick in the first round. We went Odell Beckham and Julio Jones with the wraparound because, I mean, look, 17 and 18, you can't really pass that up. Figuring we'd take a quarterback with the third pick. Well, when that came around and Amari Cooper was still on the board, I think we got a little crazy, and that's probably my fault. I apologize to Sal and Steve because I think I
yes, I do blame you for that. But we got Cooper, so I'm excited.
We thought maybe the quarterback run would last a little bit. We might get something a little better than Jared Goff, but I'm willing to bet that Jared Goff may have a statistically comparable season to Ryan Tannehill. So.
By the fact that they'll both have stats, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they'll both have stats.
Correct. All right. One other thing that I think we wanted to talk to you about is obviously you mentioned it. Scott Fishbowl season is coming up very quickly. You are in this. Is this your second year, third year? How many years have you been doing this?
Second year. I'm actually wearing my T-shirt right now.
That's excellent.
Are you wearing pants?
No.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Thank you.
What's your strategy like last year for Scott Fishbowl? And obviously with the changing of the format and the scoring, have you changed it up a little? And what are you going to be doing this year? Make sure you give away all your secrets now.
Well, one, like I said, I flamed out miserably because I overreacted to the tight end premium and drafted something like 36 tight ends. So I'm not going to do that this year. Now, I do have the 1-4. There's the 6-point passing touchdowns. There's the first point or the first down scoring. If one of the big three running backs should happen to fall, I'll be snatching them up. Otherwise, it's probably going to be Aaron Rodgers or that kid, the one with the beard, Luck. Yeah, that guy. Yeah. After that, I'm just going to pound running backs and tight ends and wide receivers. I'll worry about them towards the end of the draft.
Sal, that's right up your alley. He's pounding tight ends.
Pounding tight ends.
Pounding tight ends up the alley is wild stuff.
Let's keep it clean.
Steve, what are your thoughts on his strategy there? I'm actually picking from the 1.04 as well, and I assume I'm taking Rodgers too because I imagine DJ, Bell, and Elliott will all be gone. So, but Steve, what are your thoughts there? You're picking later in the first round, correct?
Yeah, I'm picking at the 1.08. So as far as you guys go, holding out hope that one of those three running backs drops to you guys would be where I would be thinking as well. And if that doesn't happen, taking a quarterback. So being at the 1.08, there's probably going to be those running backs gone. There's probably going to be a quarterback or two gone. There might even be a tight end gone. So it's one of those situations where you're in the back half of the draft. You're really going to have to let it fall to you and see what kind of player is available there. I can definitely, what I like most about it is being in the middle of these 12-team draft rounds is that I will avoid having a huge run go on me, that I can, gamble a little bit with a certain position. Wait a second.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to power through. You guys stop. I'm going to power through this. I'm not going to give you guys anything.
Wow.
Zero trains.
Steve,
no
I did
more
not
train
know that
talk.
was something you were into.
No more train talk.
Wow.
All right. So, yeah, I don't have to worry about a run of quarterbacks going or a run of tight ends going. I can gamble a little bit more. I have that a little more leeway, but it's definitely going to be very important those first couple picks that you get. You need them to pay off because last year that did not happen. Sal, where are you picking?
Unfortunately, I'm picking at the 12 spot, the 112. So it's important for me to make the right decision. I did a mock, and I spoke about this on Todd from PA's podcast. He's doing the SFB podcast where he has 3 to 4 people who are in the SFB this year on. So I made sure to give away my secrets on there. So why not give them away here as well? I will absolutely positively be picking at least one quarterback in those first 2 picks because I have the 112 and the 2.1. And I'll have to see who falls at that point in the first round. If a good quality running back comes to me, then I'll take him. If not, then I'll maybe start the run on tight ends and grab either Gronk or Kelsey early. In my mock, I took Russell Wilson and then decided to go with Mike Evans because he was so gloriously looking at me at the top of the second round. And that completely unraveled. I felt like I was chasing running back and tight end the rest of the draft. I never quite felt comfortable or happy with that team. So I think it's behooves me to get a running back or a tight end early.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the homeless scoring, with the points for first down added on, it's basically the wide receivers just have no value. I think someone posted something on Twitter saying that the top rated wide receiver from this scoring format from last year was like 31st. Is that right? Somewhere in the 30s. So there wasn't a wide receiver didn't rank higher than 30 in this format from last year's statistics. So it just seriously devalues them. I think it's going to be a while before you see one come off the board. And I agree with you, Sal. I think if you do that, you're going in this type of league, you're going to be chasing it the whole way, and that's never how you want to be in your draft. So
it was Mike Evans, and he was 33rd.
Yeah, that's terrible. Considering.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but now that
Yeah,
I
you
have,
did. Yeah, you
Go
did.
right ahead, man. Do it.
and I'm sure I'll mispronounce his name, but I believe it's Matt Whips. He writes
Wispy?
for RotoViz.
Wispy?
Yeah,
Wispy.
Wispy. He did a good article. I believe it was him at least the other day on the scoring. So if you have a RotoViz sub, you should probably go back and read that. If you don't, I'm not going to tell you anything that was in the article.
I mean, it's hard to remember their names once you erase them and put your own on them and then release them as your own. So it's understandable.
Well, I just assume every name I see on any article that has nothing to do with who actually wrote it.
So that was Matt's article. I just want to say I want to give Matt a plug. Matt's a friend of ours, and you can find him at Wispy the Kid on Twitter. He does good work on RotoViz.
He does.
Yeah, and I'm fairly certain it was his article, and it was really good. Really good.
Yeah, he's a very stat-driven guy. Definitely does some good work over there, and obviously you should check that out if you have a subscription. It's probably plagiarized because, as we're learning from Shane, just about everything in the fantasy industry is plagiarized at this point. So,
actually, Kevin, if people want to reach out to us in DM, we could give you Steve's password and stuff for RotoViz. You don't even need to get a.
Oh, that's great.
Account.
Steve's good.
Pretty sure Steve's subscription just got canceled.
Well, at least the password changed, I would imagine. So, all right, I think that about wraps it up for today. I think we've gone too far with anything that we could possibly talk about today, and I really can't stand listening to accents anymore for the evening. So, Shane, we're going to get into some finishing thoughts. So, first off, I want you to plug everything that you do. Give yourself the. Make sure you tell everyone where they can find you. Because obviously, I did no research and have no idea who you really are. So make sure that, and then just anything else you want to tell us.
Yeah, I'm on the Twitter all the time. Too much at DFF_Shane. Just SHANE. You guys could interpret that for people later if they didn't understand. I'm a writer over at dynastyfootballfactory.com. I edit. I should still have some rankings up for the next few days that are kind of outdated. Just I'm the hype man, try to keep things moving. And one thing I did want to say is we're going to also have our own eliminator. We're going to do it a little different. We're talking to John Bosch now about it, trying to make it as confusing as possible for him. We think we're going to give away some free shots in the eliminator against us to listeners to some of our podcasts. That's about it. Look for me on the Twitter box, read my stuff, tell me how great I am, because I've really low self-esteem and I just want compliments.
We can have Steve come give you a hug. That's kind of a specialty.
No, well, not Steve. I mean,
no. Listen, my hugs have been delegated out for me all throughout the day in numerous different social media mediums. And I got to tell you, I give the best hugs, all right? They're terribly undervalued. So before you turn it down, you just think about it, all right? Just think about it a little bit.
Guessing that those arms don't even register.
You will feel it. You will feel this hug, Sal. All right?
All right,
You got
Shane,
one hug coming your way, buddy.
Before we let Steve start his finishing thought, just what you mentioned a couple podcasts. What are the podcasts that you guys got going on over there so people can check those out as well?
We have the Dynasty Warzone. We have the Fantasy Football Fellas and the Edge Crushers. That's for the IDP crowd. It's a special brand of folk.
It sounds like the next 3 tag teams coming up in a WWE pay-per-view event.
Yep. And I'll actually be allowed to be on one of those shortly. They said so. That's pretty exciting.
I was gonna say, you may want to revisit that.
Well, look, if they want any of their own names on any of their own articles, they'll let me on the goddamn show.
All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out on the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast. You can check us out on Twitter at Falafel House. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter at Sid Skeet. You can follow Kev at Wally Central and Sal at Lido Sal. And check out falafelhouse.com. We've got articles coming out pretty much daily now, and they're going to be ramping up more and more as redraft season comes up, because that's what we do here, Shane. Deal with it. And Sal, on to you.
Yeah, just real quick, I'd like to thank Shane for coming on and say absolutely go follow this guy, because he is absolutely funny, and he has no trouble making fun of himself, which to me is the best type of humor. When you could be able to laugh at yourself, then you are absolutely one of the funniest people in my book. Go back and find his videos of him singing in the best Disney song draft that was done on Twitter a few months back when times were slow. Just absolutely worth the scroll back. We brought up Scott Fish and FantasyCares.net. One of the things, and I heard him say it again the other day, and he mentions it all the time, even if you don't want to do a charity league, your leagues that you're playing in at home, your home leagues, friends, whatever, take one entry fee and donate to charity. If everybody does that, like he says all the time, what a difference everyone can make. And the last thing I will say, and she's upstairs and she could probably hear me through the door. She's probably like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But my daughter graduates from high school tomorrow night, so I'm super proud of her. And I just wanted to point that out, that I am definitely getting old, because I'm going to have a child no longer in high school starting tomorrow. So really proud of Madison and looking forward to our future.
Congratulations, little Lido.
Congratulations, Madison. Definitely big props to you. It must have been incredibly difficult to get through school with a father like yours. As Sal mentioned...
I'm pretty sure you just insulted my father.
What?
If you go back and listen to what you said it was difficult to get through school with a father like yours.
Talking to Madison.
No, he said it to me.
See, now this
is not about you, Sal. This is her graduation. Stop making this about you.
I'm going to hit mute.
All right. As I mentioned, as Sal mentioned, FantasyCares.net is where you can go to find all the eliminators. Definitely go out there, check one out. I agree with Sal that you should use your own league to support charity. But if you don't want to do that and you want to get in some great best ball tournaments or the eliminators or anything else that they got going on there, definitely FantasyCares.net. It's a great place to go find a league and have some fun and do some good. So check that out. I also want to remind everyone that we are part of the Dynasty Happy Hour podcast network. You can find check those guys out at dynastyhappyhour.com. There's a link, a podcast page with all the different podcasts that are part of the network. It's a great group of shows, and I highly encourage you to check them all out. And I think that's it. I don't know that we can ever have Shane back, but I do thank him for coming on this one time because it reminded me what it's like to have a terrible guest. But until the next time, the button.